It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to speak to you. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be speaking with you this evening about the nature of reality and why it is that when people say we create our own reality or we create reality, what that really means, and where people are when they leave the earth plane, where that is, and what is the nature of the earth plane when we say that somebody is on the earth plane. So I'm going to be talking about all of those things in a new perspective that you may not have heard before, and it's going to be one of the bases for my book, which is now in twinkling in my eye, and I'm putting it down on paper now, and hopefully it'll be out in January or in summer. I wish it would be out in January, but it's going to be the summer. And so this is part of that book, and I want to explain it to you. And then if you have any questions or you can give me any reactions to it, I would very much appreciate that. So let me start off by saying that the idea that the Earth is the third rock from the sun, and that everything is an accident in time, that things will exist if we're not here, and it will continue until for 4.5 billion more years, when we'll be burned to a crisp when the sun explodes. That is a fiction. It is not true. We know that to be true. Now, quantum physics tells us that that's true. But we also know it to be true because we know that the nature of reality is not matter and energy, it's mind and experience. So what that means is that there is nothing but mind. The mind is, we could call the mind of God. It is the mind that is the pervasive mind in the universe. And we are individuals within that mind, but we're all part of the mind, so we're all one with each other. And we have experiences. So we have the experience of seeing a chair, but it's only the sight of the chair. That doesn't mean that there's a chair out there. All it means is that we're having the experience of a chair. And we have a feeling like there really is a chair out there because everybody else says, yeah, I can see a chair there. I'm having the same experience, so it must be out there. But that's not true. We are simply having the experience. The experience stands all by itself. We don't need to have a chair out there to have the experience. So we have the experience of a chair together in the one mind that we're sharing together. And what that means is that we must look at ourselves and the existence that we're part of differently to really understand what it is, to understand who we are in eternity. So what happens is that the mind is not in the brain. In fact, the brain is in the mind. The mind creates the brain in the same way that it creates everything else in reality. We're individual minds that are in that one big mind, the mind of God. We have our own experiences, but they all come from the one mind. Let me give you an example. In a moment, I want you to imagine, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine a young child, not someone you know. Just have a young child pop into your mind. And when that child pops into your mind, I want you to notice the child's gender, hair, clothes, and everything else about that child. So if you would do that right now, please close your eyes and let a young child pop into your mind. Okay, notice everything about that child. Notice the clothing, the hair, the gender, everything about the child. Okay, now open your eyes. And if you, how many of you could tell me things about that child that you saw in your mind? How many can tell me about the details about that child? Okay. Did you get details about the clothing? Okay. Can you unmute yourself and anybody volunteer to tell me about the child that you saw?
I'll take a crack at it, Craig. It's Donna Lair here. Mm-hmm. It was a female young girl, about 4 years old. She had dark curly hair like ringlets, dark eyes. She had white ankle socks and black like patent leather shoes.
Okay, good. Anybody else want to volunteer?
I will.
Okay.
I saw also a small child, maybe 3 or 4 years old, a boy with a blondish bowl haircut and wearing a sailor suit, like old-fashioned.
Okay, good, good. Anybody else want to volunteer?
I saw one child, but I had also seen it in a dream. And the reason it was so significant is that it was my father in the arms of his father. And it was a visitation dream. And it's been 30 years. So it was very powerful, but he had black hair. He was in baby clothes, white baby clothes. And he was in the line of all of his ancestors.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, I saw somebody almost exactly like what Sheila saw. I saw a very young boy with blondish hair and kind of a little sailor suit on.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I see more heads bobbling, so apparently that was a popular one. Dana, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I saw a young boy, probably about 5 or 6. He had a bowl cut. His hair was auburn, lots of freckles across his nose, and a striped shirt and tan pants.
Wonderful.
Brown eyes.
Wonderful. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it there because that's enough for you to get the idea. What happened was you intended to have a child come into your mind. You didn't intend the gender. You didn't intend the hair. You didn't intend the clothing. That was given to you. So in other words, you, by your intention of having a child, the source that is the creative power behind everything in the universe, brought that into your mind and you created it. So you were the one who, because you're partnering with the source, you brought it into your mind. You didn't have to think about it. You didn't have to think about the clothing, and it all came to you. That's what happens when we are when we are one with the source. We can have anything happen. Anything can come to our minds simply by intending it, simply by asking the source for it. And we have the experiences, but what you had was you had only the experience of a child. There was no child there. You had the experience of seeing the child. You may even had the experience of hearing the child, but you had an impression about the child. Just the experience was there, though. There was no child there. That's the same thing that happens in our reality, in the reality that we live in the physical world. We intend for things to happen because we just expect them to be here. And because we expect them to be here, we expect that if we go into a room and we see what's in the room and we come back then 2 days later, we'll see the same things in that room. It's our expectation that creates the reality there. And we share that. So all of us have the same expectations for that room. And because we all have the same expectations, when we walk into that room, then we have the feeling like that room is out there, that it exists apart from us. But it isn't that it exists apart from us. It's that we have the same senses, we have the same impressions that come to us from that room that's outside of us. So we seem like we are separate and having individual experiences, but we are not. We're one having the same experiences. We're always one with each other. We're never apart from each other. So then when we confront challenges, we learn individually. So we, in other words, within this dream, within this reality, then we confront challenges and we learn within that reality, and then we bring that into who we are. So experiences happen in the now point. The now point is that it's like the point of a needle of a vinyl record player. So at the now point, the experiences come into mind, and that creative source that created the child that you just saw is continually creating in your mind. It's always bringing things into the mind. Now, most of the time, what we're getting the navigating in the physical realm, because we have to navigate through it and be successful. We have to meet the challenges and overcome them. So what we're doing most of the time is we're focusing upon the physical realm, but what that is the same dream that everybody else is having. So we're focused on that. But at the same time, our minds are working very fast. The estimate is that our conscious mind, the aware mind, runs at about 40 bits per second. The unconscious, or that welling of, that deep welling of things that are other experiences that come into the mind, run at 20 million bits per second. So then the mind of the conscious, the creative force in the universe is bringing those things into our mind and is giving us the experiences. And it always fills in that needle point where the record is playing. So that point that is now is always being filled from outside of us. And what that means is that we are going to be creating from what is coming to us from outside, from the creative force. But it isn't that there is something that exists there. There isn't a chair there. There isn't a room there. We are creating that as we go through this experience. Now, I want to stop and ask whether you have any questions about that right now before I go too much further. Does anybody have any questions about that? Yeah, Kathleen.
How then does it work if you ask someone to go and find something in your room that they've never seen before, or to go exploring for treasure where you haven't envisioned what it is, but yet they find something?
Sure. Now, it's much like this. It's much like a dream. So when you're in a dream, you are the character in the dream, and all of the other characters in the dream are characters that have come from you. Okay. The scenery is from you. Everything is from you in the dream. And it's as though you are in the dream and you're creating the characters, you're creating yourself in the dream, you're creating the scenery in the dream. But in this case, we are all in the same dream. So in other words, when you look for something, then you are sharing that dream with all of us, with all the rest of us. And so we all have the same sense about that room. We have the same sense about what it is that you might have lost in that room. And so then we participate in finding that together. And once you found it, then the fact that you found it becomes a reality. It becomes part of the dream. And quantum physicists say this, you know, when a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound if nobody's there? Well, the answer is, in quantum physics, no, there's no forest there. There's no tree there. There's nothing there because there's no sentient being there. So until we are there creating the reality, quantum physics tells us there is only probabilities of possibilities of things being there. And so it's called a wave function. And so when we are there, though, when we are in that forest and we see that tree, then that tree then is a reality. It'll stay in the dream. Everybody else who comes in is going to see that same tree because we're all one mind. And as one mind, then we are creating this reality and we participate in doing that together. Our expectations then are what create the reality. We know that also to be true because when people go to the next realm of life, when they go into this other realm, then whatever they expect to be there is there. So if somebody wants to eat, then food is there. If somebody wants to have a nice house beside the river that they've always wanted to, when they were on the earth plane, then the house by the river is there. Anything that we want, we have the expectation for, simply is there. And it's the same in our reality in this side of life. And what that means is we are creating this reality because we simply expect that when we go into the forest, the tree is going to be there. Because someone else has already done that. They've been part of the dream and it's there.
But is not energy still part of that? If you have a thought, that's a frequency, and doesn't frequency have to ride on energy? Because you said to leave matter and energy out.
Yeah, there is no matter and energy. What there only is the experience of matter and energy.
Oh, experience. So in other words, okay.
And when we look for matter and energy, then we find matter and energy because we look for it.
Okay.
If we go out into the far reaches, out to the far reaches of the universe, and there's a background radiation out there from the Big Bang, and we envision what that is like, and the astrophysicists are showing us what that's like. It's only there because we look for it. And so we had the experience of a background radiation. That doesn't mean there's a background radiation out there. So what's important about this is the fact that everything that happens is happening in this one mind that we're all part of. We're individual minds within that one mind, and so we're having experiences there. Does anybody else have a question?
I do. Craig, I get two questions. The first one you said, sentient beings would have to see it if the tree fell in the forest. And I don't know how sentient animals and stuff are. Did they count? That was the first thing. And the other thing is, okay, this guy on the other side of the world in China, right, doesn't care, know, or anything about the tree. So is he really, I know he's part of the mind, but it's like it's turned off or something. I mean, he doesn't all of a sudden think, oh, there's a tree.
Yeah.
So that's the other question.
Yeah, he is part of the mind. I mean, we are all one. There is nothing but God. Amit Goswami, the theoretical physicist, said there is nothing but God. That was the conclusion that he came to from quantum physics. And what that means is, out of the 7 billion people on the planet, we are all part of the same dream. We're part of it. And so when somebody comes into our culture, comes into our location, they're going to have the same experiences that we're having. But as far as whether there is a tree out there, or the world out there, or Jupiter out there, none of that is true. This is all happening in the one mind, and that's the reason that we are creating this reality. Now, if we all agreed, if we wanted to have a loving, peaceful world, then we would just have to be loving, peaceful people. And if we were loving, peaceful people, then the whole world would be loving and peaceful. The unconditional love that people feel when they have a near-death experience, there's no reason why we couldn't have that on this experience that we're having right now. But we don't have it only because of the fact that in this dream, we've come out of a very primitive state, and we haven't grown out of that yet. We're still in a primitive state. But each one of us decided we were going to incarnate, we were going to become part of this, because of the fact that we realized that this Earth dream right now, the one that we're involved in, has all of these challenges. We knew that was true. That's why we decided to focus on this vibration. And when I say focus, what we're really talking about is, we're not really talking about incarnating, meaning becoming in flesh, which is what incarnate means. That's not what happens. We don't become flesh. What happens is we focus or tune into the Earth school that we're part of here. So we're all tuned into Earth school, and somebody else is tuned into another realm. There are millions of other realms. And there are loved ones who are simply tuned into another realm.
Craig, we've lost your audio. Can't hear you anymore.
I can.
You can?
I can hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sheila, yours.
I can hear him.
I can.
Okay, it's just me. Now,
Yeah.
now I can hear you again. It's weird.
Can you read lips? Yeah. Okay. So what that means is that everyone all these experiences that we're having are accessible to us. So in other words, then, because of the fact that we are all one mind, everyone who has ever existed, everyone who ever will be part of this is one mind, we can have experiences at any place in the universe, anytime, and we can have those experiences with people who are now on other focuses, who are attuned to other realms. So in other words, the people who are our loved ones who have graduated from this realm have simply changed focus. It's like changing the knobs on a television. And so it's not anymore like that. We used to, I'm showing my age. So it's like using the remote on the television. So what happens is that other individual who has left this Earth school and has gone on has simply changed focus, just changed their attunement. They are still one with us. They are still that close. There is no separation. But they're simply on a different attunement. That's all. More questions? Anybody else have a question? Yes, Savannah. Nice seeing you.
Good to see you. What a treat. Well, kind of similar to, I think, Pam's question, when you talk about the tree, I'm just thinking about what's the line between sentience and non-sentience. I read The Hidden Life of Trees, where they're in communication with one another. And
yeah, and there are bacteria sentient, and microbes and
Yes, mycelium.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and as far as we know, they are not. But nobody has really addressed that. But as far as we know, they are not. When we talk about sentient beings, then we're talking about the individuals whom we are, and that we are the ones who are conscious of this reality. We are part of the mind. And as far as going on to the next realms, the animals they say, tell us that they are going on to the next realm with us. Our pets go on to the next realm with us, and that there are wild animals there in the next round too. But it's all a matter of attunement. It's all a matter of we become attuned to this realm, and then when we graduate from Earth School, we simply attuned to another realm, and it's all one. There is no separation. And then what that means is that it's much like if you have a symphony. For instance, if you have Tchaikovsky concerto, piano concerto, and then the Tchaikovsky piano concerto has a very strong piano. And the strong piano is like we are living in our life and we're navigating through the physical Earth School. And as we navigated through it, the piano is the strongest. That's Earth School. That's navigating through it. But at the same time, there are 36 instruments that are behind it. And every one of those is playing. And it's like the same way with us. At that point of now, at that needle point of now, we get that strong piano. In other words, we get the realm that's around us right now. But at the same time, we're getting 36 others. We're getting 36 other sets of experiences. And because of the fact that the mind goes so quickly in this realm, and that's underneath our conscious mind, it's at 20 million bits per second instead of 40 bits per second. They are flying into our mind and flying out, flying into our mind and flying out. And all the way through our lives, what happens is we are continually bombarded with these experiences. And we then are the person who is still there when the experiences leave. So they come and they go, they come and they go, all day long, every day. But what's left is we who are the eternal being, we who are the eternal soul. And then we stay, we are always there, we're always prominent. And then we continue after we finish with Earth School and we go on to the next realm and we attune to another realm, we're just moving ourselves into another realm.
And when you talk about the needle point of time, do you, in the now, do you include in the now the all?
Yeah, and the now, yeah, and the now. Go ahead, say that again, Savannah.
Oh, the now, not just this second, but all of time.
Yeah. It's like it isn't just one vinyl record. It's like a billion vinyl records.
Yeah.
And all of them. From Einstein's work in 1905 when he talked about general relative or special relativity. What he discovered was it was actually his mentor, his mathematics teacher, who was Hermann Minkowski, who said, what you're talking about is you're talking about space and time being together. So there's only space-time. And that means that space and time are like a big block. Instead of thinking of it as an arrow that we're going from past, present to future, space and time are in a big block. So that means that over there on the left, then is when you were a child, and over here on the block is where you were when you got married, and over there on the block is George Washington, and they're all just in a block, and they all are accessible right now.
Simultaneous.
Yeah, it's like they all existed. They always existed, and so then we can go off to anywhere in that block. What we have to do is we have to quiet the piano. So if we quiet the piano, we can hear the violins.
Right.
And we might be able to hear that one oboe that's back in there. But we have to quiet the piano to do that. And we do that through meditation and through other means, of course, and hypnotism and EMDR and so through other methods that we use. And what that does is that allows all those 36 other instruments, which means all those experiences that are coming into the mind, to be able to come into us. And then we can have those experiences. We can bring them up to awareness, them up to that 40 bits per minute awareness. So then we can experience them at that level. But we're bombarded with these experiences all the time. And then we have to, we normally just dismiss most of them. Those experiences that are the most emotional will be the ones that have the highest probability of coming up. So they're going to keep coming up. So if we feel grief about something, then it's going to keep coming in. It's going to come into that now, that needle point of now. And that experience is something which is going to dominate us because it keeps coming in and keeps coming in. Or if we're having something, concern about something in the future, like how we're going to pay for our daughter's high school or college education, then that worry, that concern, you're going to keep it coming into now, because that instrument is strong and there's a high probability of it coming in. And if you don't deal with that, then it's going to keep coming in and keep coming in. We don't forget. What we actually do, the memories are replaced. And in fact, that's what happens in guided afterlife connections, which uses EMDR. The person who has the experience and learns to reprocess it, learns to go into it and see it in a different way, says that, well, I try to bring up that old memory, but I can't bring it up anymore. All I can bring up is that person smiling and being healthy, because it wasn't that the memory of that person laying in the casket is gone now. It isn't that that's gone. It's that it's been replaced by this other memory. So these experiences, these memories that come to us are just replaced by other memories. And so in order to take care of those other 36 instruments, all those experiences that are coming in, worries and concerns and griefs, to take care of them, we have to replace them with other experiences, with other realities of what
Get more in the forefront.
Yeah. So that's our reality. Our reality is all those experiences that are coming to us. They are not in a physical realm. And we create that reality. We decide, because we have free will, how we're going to handle each one of those experiences that comes into the mind. We're the ones who are masters of our own ship. But we do have to take charge of it. And in order to do that, then we have to be free and open and willing. And we have to look for the opportunities to do things that are going to give to us what it is that we need. And if we do that, then the divine, the creative source, and our loved ones and our guides and the others who are working with us and for us will intervene, and they will help they won't interfere with our free will, but they will give us cues, and they will help us, and they will encourage us. And so they will take us to the next steps as much as we want to go. But we have to be open to it. We have to believe that that's true. And we have to face these things that are coming up and saying, you are not going to dominate my life. Instead, my life is going on, and I'm going to become the person I've always wanted to be. But we are the masters of that, with the help of all of the others who are coming in, because they, remember, among those 36 instruments, all those experiences that are flooding in to the now point of our minds, among those instruments are our guides, our loved ones, our helpers. They're all coming in. They're the instruments that are coming in. And so at every moment, then, we're getting those tones. But if we don't quiet the piano, which means the physical world, the world that we're involved in, that we're navigating through, if we don't quiet the physical world, we'll only hear the piano. We're only going to hear the physical world. And so what we do is that when we quiet it, we can go all kinds of places. And if you know anything about hemisync and about being able to navigate through the various levels, then you can go anywhere in the world. Everything is accessible to us. It is accessible to us to find out things about what's on the other side of Mars. I mean, that's accessible to us. It's just that we don't do it because we don't have a focus. We can't tune into that. But it is something which is accessible. Everything is accessible to us. All we have to do is go into our minds and go into that state of mind in which we can get them. Anybody else have any questions at this point? Okay, let's go on. Yeah.
One thing I wonder, I was just stretching this model even more. I've been working with Pete Smith, but he's worked on this thing called quantum consciousness experience. And one of the aspects of that work is to pay attention to choice points, major choice points in our life, and that sometimes we make one choice, but another aspect of our being continues on another path. And in part of this work, we can, you're talking about the instruments, we can sometimes connect with those other selves that are going on another path. When you were talking about emotions being a strong conduit, sometimes another self on another path has a strong experience, and that kind of bleeds through, like, wow, what is that, into our piano music. So
and if that's true, then we can access that.
Yes.
And we believe that that's true. That's a very important part of it. That we have to know that we can access anything. We have to know that we can communicate with the people who are now tuned into another one of the realities. And if we know that, if we believe that to be true, if we have the confidence that that's true, and we allow ourselves to be open to it, then we can access anything. I do remote viewing, and what that means is that I can sit in my office, or I can sit here in Illinois, and I can see things that are on a table that is 2,000 or 3,000 miles away, just by quieting my mind and then accessing that, just saying, I'd like to have that. I'd like to know what that is. And it comes into my mind, and then it comes up to my consciousness, my awareness, that 40 bits, that slow thing that's out there. And then I can process it, and then I can experience it. We have the capability, though, of communicating with anybody and with having any experiences. Remember that the experience of sight is only an experience. It is not something that's out there. In other words, when I do remote viewing and I see something that is thousands of miles away, I'm not seeing that thing that's out there. What I'm doing is I'm accessing the experience that's in the mind of that thing that's out there. But it isn't really, it isn't a physical thing. It's simply in the mind, and I can access that. Any of us can access that. So our minds are capable of going anywhere, of doing anything. It's just that we have limitations because of the fact that we're so focused on that piano. It's so focused on the physical realm that we can't slow down long enough to allow the other instruments to come through. But we can learn how to do that. Anybody else have a question before we go on? Yeah, Kathleen.
Do you think a collective consciousness has limited the average person's physical abilities in order to keep us from knowing kind of the truths that you're talking about? Like, our body has limitations, so that's a collective consciousness that says I exist in this body. But I'm wondering now if a larger collective consciousness or understanding has overridden our consciousness. Like, are there factors that are overriding consciousness of some greater than others because they're more attuned?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. We have free will. We are the captains of our ship, and we as a body, we as a collective, we have free will. So in other words, we are creating this reality out of a free will choice. So we are deciding to do it, even though it appears that we have no control over it. It still is something that we are creating. If we can manage to change the world, if we can manage to get more people to be loving and compassionate, that will change reality. So we're in control of that. We can do that. And there is nobody else who would override that. So we have free will. We as one mind are making this happen. We are engaged in it. And we are the ones who make the decisions. We advance humankind. And as humankind advances on this attunement to this earth school that we're in right now, this earth school could be full of love and compassion. So this particular attunement that we have could be very different, but that depends upon us. We have to do it. And so we're working at it, but it's just, there are so many negatives right now, but we chose to become part of this experience. We chose Earth School at this point because we knew it was like this for some reason that we may not fully understand now, but we chose it. We're here because we wanted to be in a world that's full of cruelty and full of politicians and full of lawyers and all of these other things that we have. But we chose it, and we, I believe, are here because we have a mission. We need to advance humankind. Excuse me. Swallowed wrong. Did anybody else have a question? Okay, let's go on. So, cough that up. So what happens then is that we are having experiences in Earth School, and through these experiences, then we do three things that are important. We love, we learn, and we should be happy. So being happy is very much a part of this experience. We become happy by learning not to pursue the things that are in the attunement on Earth School that are what we call the physical realm. If anything that we have that makes us happy, it has a reason for it. If we need to have a person, there's an individual, we've got to have this person in our life to be happy, or we have to have this person treat us well to be happy. If there's anything in our lives that has a reason for it, then that isn't happiness, it's another form of misery. And we will always be trying to get that. We will never be satisfied with it. It can be taken away at any time. So what we are doing in Earth School, when we're attuned to this reality, is we are attempting to change our individual minds so that we are happy within this experience. And when we're happy within this experience, we make other people happy because we are influencing the mind, the one mind that we all are. And in fact, if you know anything, there's a Maharishi effect. The Maharishi effect is an effect that has been found to be true. There's been a lot of research on the Maharishi effect. But a small minority of 1,000 meditators, Zen meditators in a city who are focusing on the well-being of that city can make a change in the city. And so during the time when they are meditating, and this is over a period of weeks, there is a decrease in the crime rates, there's a decrease of violent crime, a decrease in murders, a decrease in thefts. There is an increase in the patents that come out of the inventions that come out of that city. And this has happened, it's been studied in the United States, it's been studied in Israel, it's been studied in Europe, and repeatedly, when we have the meditators, a very small number of meditators for that size of a city, when we have that number of meditators, they influence the entire city, the entire population. So it doesn't take much for that to happen. We can begin to change reality by just having as many of us as possible simply feel love and compassion, simply want to change. So what we're doing is we're all of those instruments that come into the now, all of those that are coming into our experience of the now, they are giving us the sentiments or the feelings that we have, and we can take those instruments one at a time, each one of those experiences, that worry about how we're going to get my daughter through college, that grief that we're feeling because we had lost somebody or lost a job, each one of those individually and taking each one. And instead of saying, oh, I would have been happy if that hadn't happened, or I will be happy if this happens. Instead of doing that, taking them and examining them and looking at them just like you were looking at something through a microscope and looking at all sides of it, facing what it is, then we can change that. And when we change it, the old memory, the old experience then is replaced, because we replace things by having something new, which is better. Something new which is more desirable. And when that new desirable thing comes into our minds, it becomes the instrument that will come up next time we have that concert. And it will replace those things that were negative. And when we do that in our minds, then each one of us, then we can be happy, be happier. Happiness, there is a word for, we have a word unhappy. meaning that our natural state is being happy, and if we're unhappy, then we're just not in our natural states. There isn't a state of happiness called unmiserable. You know, it's not those misery or those issues that we have in the negative. They are not the norm. The norm is that we're happy. So that we go into happiness when we take care about each one of those individual issues, and we find ways of being happy in spite of them, and not being reliant upon anything in the physical realm. Nothing in the physical realm should make us happy. If any happiness has a reason for it, it's just another form of misery. Do you want to ask any questions about that? Yeah. Jen?
Hi. So I'm at a particular place where a friend of mine just died the other day, who was very close to me. And I expect that I should be feeling grief and crying. But what you're saying is if I simply replace whatever pictures or thoughts that I have with the pleasant pictures of her alive and, you know, filled with joy and, you know, all those wonderful pictures, that I shouldn't feel the grief. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And am I just then in denial, according to our cultural beliefs, or am I truly making progress?
No, you're truly making progress. Now, there's a difference between feeling sad because you can't have that person with you. You know, that's a sadness that you have that is going to stay there, because every time you do something that reminds you of that person, then you're going to feel that. So there's a difference between that and realizing that this person right now is happy as a clam, is just enjoying life, wishes you felt the same way, because, and maybe now I'm in pain. And so then these are all the positive things that you see about this person. And if you dwell upon those, instead of coulda, woulda, shoulda, which is what people do, they dwell upon, well, if I'd have done this differently, this wouldn't have happened, or if I treated that person differently, this wouldn't have happened. And that's a coulda, woulda, shouldas, and you stay on those, and what happens is that brings those up into the high probability of coming in as the piano in your life.
Right, and I don't feel like there's a coulda, woulda, shoulda. I mean, but there is that point of missing someone.
Yeah, and that's natural, and you're always going to feel that. So you're going to feel like, oh, I do wish that they were here. I really feel sad that we can't experience these things together. The sadness is going to be there. So in other words, the grief is not going to go away. It doesn't. You don't need to expect it to go away. But whether you feel the desperate grief that is unrelenting, that is a choice that you can make, because you can see where that person is now. The person is, when we realize that leaving this attunement is only just a change of focus for the person is still just as
right.
alive.
That's what I do. I do believe that, but I keep thinking, well, okay, so I guess I'm vacillating then between the missing and the joyfulness, knowing that she's in a better place and she's just fine and everything else.
Yeah, and that's perfectly natural, and there's nothing wrong with it. With going back and forth between the two, you will do that. But we can, when you look at it, and I only refer to the coulda, woulda, shoulda, because that's a pit that people get into that they can't climb out of, because what they do is they keep bringing back the memory. They keep bringing back what they could have done, what they should have done, what they didn't do right, and what that does is to keep that as the piano in their life, and that's what's going to keep coming out of, because it has to be replaced, and it should be replaced by these realizations, by stopping and looking at it and saying, what is it that's going on here? Why am I making myself feel this? Because we are making ourselves feel it. It isn't something outside of us. Right. Then we can replace that with the realization that this is a wonderful birth. You know, that the death for the caterpillar is the birth and life for the butterfly, and this is just a rebirth. It's just a change of attunement to another level. And when we begin to realize that as a culture, when we begin to realize that, but we as individuals, then we can see this transition, this attunement, going from this attunement to another, as being something very positive, and looking forward to the reunion.
Mm-hmm.
And those kinds of feelings that will replace, they can replace that feeling. And I mentioned the the EMDR. It was actually the IADC, which is induced after death communication, which is a method of using what's called bilateral stimulation, but it's EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And what happens is that the psychotherapist puts the person into the state of mind where they can have a connection with their loved one on the other side. Rochelle Wright is doing this in Washington and has a 98% success rate. 98% of the people are able to do this. And I worked with Al Botkin, who is a psychotherapist in Libertyville, Illinois. He has the induced after death communication form. And he's the one who had the soldier in his veterans hospital. And the soldier was just grasping. He was just having a difficult time living because of the fact that he kept remembering the face of an enemy soldier. He actually saw the soldier looked at him, and he shot him and killed him. And at the time, when they're in the midst of war, then there's this feeling of anger, and that's fed by the way that they're treated, by the way that they're taught as troops. They have to feel angry. You can't kill another human being unless you do. So they were the enemy, and so they killed the enemy. But when they come out and they then mature, they go on 20, 30 years later, and they think back to those images of that face of that soldier that they saw, then he was despondent. His life was a wreck because he kept having that image come back, kept coming back, kept coming back. So it became the piano in his life. And what happened was it went into the EMDR, the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. He went into the state of mind where he actually had a conversation with the soldier. The soldier said, "I'm fine now. My family understands this was war. These things happened. Don't worry about it." And he smiled at him, and that was the image that he had from then on. The smile replaced the image of that soldier he was just about to kill.
Right.
And because that replaced that now he says, I keep trying to bring up that old image. I just can't bring it up anymore. I can't envision that anymore. And it's because that the new images replace that. So what we need to do is take a look at the reality. The reality is that this person who has passed away is now very happy and is with us. And they're just tuned, they're right on with us, and they're just tuned to a different frequency. And that we can communicate with them, and they're just having a wonderful time, and they're very healthy. And that can begin to replace what it is that we're feeling. As far as whether you should feel something or one way or another, that you shouldn't have to feel anything. You don't have to feel like you must feel something. You feel whatever it is that you feel naturally. But we can change the way that these things, these instruments that come into our life, we have the control. We are the masters of our destiny. Right. So we can control these things, and we can make we can create different experiences and different memories, and that will then change the way that we view these things, and that will change us to be happy. Being happy just means getting rid of these things that are causing us to be unhappy. Unhappy is a state of mind that is unnatural. Happy is the natural state of mind.
Thank you.
Get rid of these things, then we can be happy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have a comment or a question? Surely someone else has a comment about that. And I invite anybody to say it. Peter, did you have your hand up? You have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Who are you talking to, Craig?
Peter?
Peter, did you have a... Yeah, here, I'll unmute you. There, go ahead.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, there's a friend of mine that says in this earthly realm, pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Mm. And so there's two conflicting thoughts here. There's one that says, I lost my friend, I feel bad. And the other one is, my friend is in a much better place, I feel good for her. But if you continue to dwell on the painful I feel bad, and you keep repeating that, then that pain becomes suffering. It just goes on forever.
Mm-hmm.
But you can switch. You can just put your attention on the other thought that she's in a much better place.
Yes.
And you
right.
can reduce the suffering and the pain, and you don't have to suffer.
Yeah.
That's maybe a simplistic explanation, but you know, if you sort of guide on that idea that pain is inevitable in the reality we've chosen to live in,
mm-hmm.
but suffering really is an option.
Yes, right. That's true. Pain, the physical pain, of course, is something which is a reality. The suffering is not. Suffering is largely what men do to men, what people do to people. So we are inflicting suffering, but we're doing that as one mind. We must always remember the fact that it isn't that these are things happening out there, that there are bad people out there, that there are people who are cruel out there. They are part of the one mind. And we influence them by who we are. So that every time we raise our stature through being loving and compassionate, we are influencing those other parts of our mind that are right now cruel. And that's what the Maharishi effect showed. It wasn't that those people meditating were somehow affecting other individuals who were separate from them and they were in different bodies. And that's not what it is. That was one mind. There's another phenomenon called the worldwide consciousness experiment. And the worldwide consciousness experiment has sensors that are random number generators all around the world. There are 50 of them. And the random number generators create random numbers. In other words, they just spit out, they don't make any sense. But if they start to form an order and no longer being random, that means that something has happened. Something has influenced that. And the random number generators now around the world are showing when monumental things happen into humankind. And you can see the order appearing, which means that they are affected. In other words, because they're part of the one mind, that one mind is changing them. And they are being affected by things that happen. In the 9/11 tragedy, the random number generator showed some form of consistency the morning before the planes flew, because that's when they were getting ready to go. They were getting ready. They showed that they were no longer random in a small bit when the planes actually flew into the towers. Same thing happened in the O.J. Simpson verdict. Because there were so many people who were attuned to that, so many people were watching it, it affected the random number generators. But remember that they are in the mind, they're not in the physical world. Like there's a rock and matter and energy world out there. They are all in one mind, and that's the reason that they're influenced. Did anybody else have a comment? Sheila, I don't know how long you're going to go.
Well, we usually are an hour, which is about now. You know, if people need to leave, they can leave. If they want to continue talking, this is a lot for a feeble brain like mine to take in. I don't know if anybody else feels the same, but it's a lot. Dana has a comment. Or no? Oh, you just
No, I'm just agreeing that this is like heavy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And
read the book. When the book is done, it'll all be in the book.
Yeah. So how do you know that these things are true?
Is from all of the study that I've done of, and primarily from my study of the afterlife, or what we call the afterlife, and what we've learned about the other realms. What we've learned about the other realms is informing, it's telling us what we know about this realm. And so based upon that, this is all true. But there are other thinkers who are saying the same things. Rupert Spira, anybody know Rupert Spira? He's a Buddhist. And the Buddhists have the same tradition. So they've been saying this for millennia. And it's just that we're bringing this into the mainstream now.
It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good for us to expand what information. And wow.
Silvana, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just curious to learn more about your book. I mean, I'm getting some of the concepts you want to explore, but want to say more about your book?
Yeah, Sheila, if you don't mind.
Before you do that, can I say that the books, some of the books that you've written, like the ones with Alan Botkin about the IADCs, really, really worth reading and wonderful. Will make you feel good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's an inspiring book. It was fun to write it, and it was even more fun to watch Alan Botkin, who's the psychotherapist, and they then would go into these counseling sessions with these veterans, and they would come out of this counseling session and they're just amazed. They're running down the hall to somebody else's office to tell them the story of what happened. It's just really so exciting, so invigorating. My book is called Earth School, and it is going to explain everything that happens all the way from deciding to attune to Earth School, why a person enters Earth School, to the birth process, through their maturation in life, in which they learn all of the rules of Earth School, and then they learn that they have to dispose of them. And then going from there through to their point of transition out of Earth School, and then what life is like for them after they have attuned to another realm after Earth School. So it's going to go through the whole thing.
Wow, lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
When do you think it will be out?
It's going to be out in the summer of this coming year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come back and tell us more about it when it
I'd
comes
love
out.
to.
Yeah. And you're always welcome to come and talk about anything.
Yeah, good.
And so you're in Illinois. I was thinking you were in Ohio for some reason, but you're in Illinois.
It's close.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Right out in the middle of the cornfields.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, anybody have anything else, or are you just overwhelmed?
I'd just like to ask, Craig, are you doing any more events or conferences, or what's coming up for you?
What we're talking about now is having an online conference, because the physical conferences are just too much work, and it drives us crazy. But so we did 4, plus the summit that we just had, and they were just lots of fun at the conference. If we could wave a magic wand and make the conference happen without all the stuff that went on before it, we would do one every year. We do 10 every year, but they're just too much work for the influence that we can have. So we're focusing now on online conferences. So we very likely are going to have an online conference this coming year, in which we have the speakers who are going to be speaking from their homes and their offices. And we're going to have individuals who are going to get on to the stream for the conference. But we're going to be encouraging people to get together to have mini conferences, so that the people in Chicago, they meet at a hotel. There are 50 or 60 or 100 people, and they all have the mini conference. They have the large screen so that the speakers can come through to them. They're going to be like a Zoom here, so they can ask questions back and forth. But there'll be these groups of people all around. So there may be 50 of these groups of people of 100 people all around the United States, all around the world. And they then are going to have a mini conference where they have a chance to get together, to talk, to have a meal together, and they have their own little mini conference. That's what we're working towards.
I just did that last weekend in a much smaller way with my handwriting group. And we've done that a couple times. We all met in Tucson a couple years ago and did that. And we have people from all over the world, and it works really well, and it allows so many more people to benefit, who can't be there in person for whatever reason. And I know, having hosted 10 in-person conferences, I know how much work it is. So yeah, that's great. That's really good news.
I wondered if you had any updates on the soul phone.
The soul phone is about 10 years old now, and they do have a prototype of a soul switch, which means that they are having some changes that are happening in the mechanism as a result of influences from those who are working with them on the other side. So there is a soul switch, but it just is on and off. So they're making some progress, but not a great amount. The best progress today is being made by Sonia Rinaldi and Sherry Pearl and the people who are doing the EVP work, and in the realm of EMDR, guided afterlife connections that Rochelle Wright's doing, Alan Botkin's doing. This is where the really good work today is being done. Annabella Cardoso in Portugal is doing work with radio voice, and she's having some good results there. But most of the really good results are coming out of the work by the psychotherapists. I think that's the primary area now.
I am actually in therapy with someone who studied with Rochelle Wright.
Oh yeah.
A trauma specialist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. And Rochelle is just she's very talented, and I'd recommend anybody to go into a session with anybody she's trained, but also go into one with her. They can last for a long time, and people have conversations for hours with their loved one on the other side.
Yeah, she wanted me to go there, but I wasn't, because I was leaving for Europe. I wasn't able to go up there. So in the meantime, this was a substitute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've heard all the good work she does.
She's wonderful. Yeah.
Wow. Well, everybody, our next meeting is November 20th. Everybody's welcome back. And in December, we're going to have a visit from Gretchen Bickert. I'm not sure yet what she's talking about. I hope she's going to be talking about healing. But, you know, she also talks about animals in the afterlife, or as I like to call it, life after earth, rather than life after death.
Mm-hmm.
So really good to see you all. Any last comments or questions for Craig or anybody? Anything you want to say? Now's your chance. Go on, Pam.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and to Craig.
Oh.
This has been great.
Good.
So glad that you accepted our invitation.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the recording.